Hey everyone, it's Shobit, and today we'll be talking about one of the most important concepts, extreme ownership for product managers. Stay tuned for more. So one of the most influential books for me as far as product management is concerned is called Extreme Ownership. And it's a book about military leadership. And to be honest, for the longest time, there's a lot of people that were telling me about the book and I was resisting it. I was like, what does extreme ownership and military leadership have to do with product management? But when I read it, I realized how much many of my clients who were just not taking that full ownership that they needed to truly succeed in their role, to be truly successful, and to be truly the leaders that their organization needs. So it has more than what you can imagine. I'm going to talk through a few concepts. Let's begin with the first one. The first lesson is really about true ownership above all. Now, ultimately, you must realize that a leader is ultimately responsible for everything. Now, you as a product manager are the leader for your team. And so if something goes wrong, it is your fault. If the team did not test the software, it's your fault. If the product leaked your users' data, it is your fault. If the team over-engineered the product, it's also your fault. If the product never met the customer's needs, it's your fault. While this point of view might seem disheartening, discouraging, disempowering, really it's the most empowering point of view. Because once you start to take real ownership, you begin to understand that there's more facets of the product than you considered at first. And now it means you can truly start to empower the people who will be executing them fully. Whether it's designers, QA, your legal team, you empower them. But it goes beyond that. When you take on this attitude, your team feels it. Your team gets inspired by the approach and by the knowledge that they have a leader who will not blame them, but instead support them, motivate them, inspire them, and help them achieve what is right for the product, for the customers, and for the company. So you must stay loyal to the team and the mission for this. I remember having one of these empowering conversations with a leader at Google. And after a phase where things did not go well, we were debriefing and they said, look, Shobit, you decide what you want to take responsibility for. And I thought, wow, that taking responsibility is a choice. And it was sort of a wake-up call for me because I was like, well, maybe I'm not taking responsibility for many of the things that I should be. And so I started to really take on that responsibility because by not taking that full ownership, I was letting my team down. So as a product manager and leader, you must take full ownership. Now, sometimes that can be scary. It can be unfamiliar, where it almost feels like, hey, everything that goes wrong, I'll be the one who'll be blamed. But one tool that really helps me in this context, where I'm trying to take that full ownership, is the 10-10-10 tool. So any ownership, any decision you're trying to make, that's really where ownership comes in. You must question yourself, how would you feel about it in 10 minutes? That's the first 10. How would you feel about your decision in 10 months? That's the second 10. And how would you feel about it looking back in 10 years? In most cases, when we're not taking full ownership, what we're doing is we're too caught up in what happens in 10 minutes. And we're not looking at these other points of view, which is basically encouraging us to not really take true ownership. So that 10-10-10 rule or that tool is one of the best ways I've found of actually taking extreme ownership, where I drive those decisions in such a way that I'm looking at the long-term result. And that is ultimately where I end up succeeding and where I ended up taking that true, full ownership about everything that happens regarding the product. Leadership can make a huge difference. Most of the time when I have a conversation with a product manager, one of my clients who is unhappy at their job, they're blaming the they. Often that comes, hey, leadership does not understand product management. My engineers are lazy, or they just don't want to take responsibility. My salespeople, they just want to close a deal and get paid. Everyone is at fault except for them. What's lacking is this internalization of this concept that leadership can make a huge difference. So I'm going to go back to the book, Extreme Ownership, and the author gives an example of two teams in a rowing competition. The first one was doing really well, and the other one wasn't. It was consistently last, and the first one was consistently first. So what they did was they said, okay, let's switch the leaders. The leader of the team that was winning went to the losing team, and vice versa. By the end of a few more races, second team was now second in the competition. They'd almost caught up to the first team. And the first team, they continued to remain first because, they had just built that thing up. So the point is that leader who was first on the first team and now on the second team, that made a huge difference. A difference that lasted, and then a difference in the new team, which really did not believe in themselves. He or she got them to believe in themselves. So, the point here is that you have to, first of all, believe that your leadership can make a huge difference. And sure, many of the things that you think are not right with your stakeholders, your engineers, your salespeople, they might actually be correct. But here's the point. If you're blaming that for the lack of success, what sort of leadership are you showing? And if you have a belief that your leadership can make a massive difference, it doesn't matter that some of those things are not perfect right now, because you can. So you must believe that winning is possible. Even if circumstances are hard, you must set high standards of performance. You must rally your team to achieve, and you must do so relentlessly in cases of failure where initially things are not going that well. You must do the hard work of leadership. Next, you must believe in the mission. Let me ask you, have you ever been asked by your team why you're building certain features, why you're following a particular direction? And have you ever responded to that question and said, oh, that's because my boss told me so, or because, stakeholders want this? That is one of the most disempowering things that a team can hear, which is that, hey, we're doing this because they told us, and so we have to do it. The level of inspiration, productivity, everything's going to go down like anything. So the big point here is you must believe in the mission. The mission of the company, the direction it's following, you must be aligned with it. And if you don't believe it, you must keep questioning your boss, their boss, all the stakeholders, until you either understand their point of view or you change their mind. This is super critical, because all too often people, especially product managers, they start playing the role of a victim. That, look, our product manager, our team doesn't understand things. Nobody understands it except me, but I just have to do what they say. No. It's very, very likely that your stakeholders and teams are smart and they have applied some sort of logic for the decisions that they're driving. Seek to understand that first. And if you don't understand it, it's likely because you've not asked. Now, it's possible that that point of view can be improved, but you must seek to understand their logic in a way such that you can explain it to the team. Even if there's a decision that's controversial, you should be able to explain the logic to your team why that was made. There is a belief that this will get us these sort of customers, which will result in this kind of gain. Now, there might be some assumptions here that are wrong. I am looking to prove or disprove them, But for now, based on what the leadership believes, here is what the logic is. So you've understood the logic, you've understood how they came to the decision. You don't agree with every single thing yet, but you're looking to either disprove them or you're just keep going. So that is the thing, that you must believe in the mission and you must believe the logic which is being used to drive those decisions. Now, one of the things that comes up here is a lot of, sometimes when I'm working with, especially with early career product managers, they say, look, I don't want to push back too much because then I'm seen as someone who doesn't believe in anything that's happening. So I might appear like I'm just pushing back. I remember this one moment during an offsite when I was working at McKinsey, which changed everything for me. Where we were talking to a partner and we were saying, hey, it's our duty to push back, right? And he said, no, you're not pushing back. This is not push and pull. This is not fighting. This is merely having a clarifying conversation. Phrase it that way. Put your beliefs around it such that you look at it that way. And when you do, all that discussions and conversations, they are just clarifying conversations that you're having. You're not trying to push back on anything. Pushing back never wins. So it's all about that clarifying conversation. You can have it as many times as you want with your manager, as long as it is set up the right way. So you must believe in the mission. You must talk about it, discuss it, try to understand the logic until you come to a common ground. And if at some point you don't necessarily agree, but you understand their logic, work to either change their point of view, get the data to change their point of view, or get the data from them to change your point of view. But you must get to that alignment and that belief. Last but not least, you must show decisiveness amid uncertainty. Now, it's easy to get paralyzed by the chaos of the situation, whether it's the battlefield or whether it's product management. Now, leaders must stay decisive amid uncertainty. So you must make all decisions with logic, with data, even when emotion threatens to override all logic. But at the same time, you must realize that the amount of data you get will be highly variable. Sometimes you can get a lot, sometimes you can get just a little. So the author's point here is that intelligence gathering and research are absolutely essential. Customer research is essential, competitive research is essential, but they must be employed with the realistic expectations and must not impede swift decision making. That's often the difference between victory and defeat. So I remember there reading one article. This was, I'll try to find it also and post a link below this video, but it was by First Round. And one of the things it says was that, look, speed is the ultimate competitive weapon. If you can move fast, you can learn, you can grow really quickly. And even if somebody else had a huge advantage, you can become much better than that. So some of the best moments I've experienced in my product management career have been when I said, hi team, this decision is very difficult. And we have some data on both sides. I might not be 100% right, but it's time to make it. And here's the decision. Here's why I made it. Anybody wants to talk about it right now? Because either way we are deciding. Okay, good. Thank you. Let's make it happen. Decision making amid uncertainty is absolutely crucial, which doesn't mean that your decision is like forever final and binding. If 3 days later you find data, especially as you start, actually, very crucial point. When you start to execute, that's when you get a lot of the data, right? You don't really get data until you start to execute. And you get more data, and then you're like, oh, you know what? Seems like I made a wrong decision. We have this new data. We're going to reverse it. We're going to go this way. That's really where power lies. Decision making amid uncertainty. So you must be decisive when it matters. Otherwise, you appear weak as a leader, and product managers and first and foremost leaders. Don't ever forget that. Everything you do is in the service of the mission and your team. And if you ever lose faith in either of those, you must build it back up quickly or find another purpose. In any case, the path is true ownership. It's extreme ownership. Okay, next one. Prioritize and execute. So going back to extreme ownership and the author explaining things, giving the example of a battlefield. Things are often going astray. The enemy is attacking, the positions are unknown, you're not sure which direction to head in. Like really the book, they bring in signs of, I think, Iraq and Afghanistan both, but just like crazy scenarios. And it's so easy to get overwhelmed in those scenarios. Now, to a much less degree, but still, the same thing is true for you. In the sense of, there's just all these unknowns, including how customers are going to react, just as completely, it's crazy. The amount of variables that product managers deal with is absolutely insane. The only thing we have going for ourselves is the ability to prioritize and execute. Figure out what's the next most important thing, do it well, focus on it, and then pick the next thing. So sometimes what happens is that we yearn for complete certainty. And I can give examples of people in product management roles. I can even give examples of people in job search where they want complete certainty. They want to know exactly why they were not selected for that position. Fact is, you're never really going to know. You might get some feedback from the company. Some companies have just given amazing feedback to candidates. And one that comes to mind is a company called Wise, used to be known as TransferWise. One of my students was recruiting there, and the kind of feedback he got, I was like, this is the kind of company I want everyone to work for. They care about people who they're interviewing. But most of the times, what you'll hear is, oh, we found a better fit. And that might be true, or that might just not be true. They're just trying to not tell you anything. So instead of worrying about trying to gain complete certainty, seek to find the next most crucial thing, the next bottleneck, and solve it immensely well. Then move on to the task or the job after that. Just keep going. You just need to stay a step or two ahead of real-time problems. And what you need to do is also pass the awareness of those problems and why you're executing and what's going on throughout your team. That's really what you need to do. Prioritize and execute and focus on the next most important problem to solve rather than trying to gain complete certainty over everything, because that is never going to happen. Okay, so if you like this video and you want to learn about and become that extreme owner product manager who's going to go long term in their career and absolutely succeed, I have two things for you. So number one, I'll leave a link for my masterclass, which is all about what are the 5 things that I've seen product leaders that grow quickly through their career and become such amazing leaders do. Just from the class, you learn a lot. And then after that, if you want to really explore how this path looks like for you, set up a call with my team. I'll leave the link below. Look forward to talking to you very soon.